All right. Hey, hi everyone. Now let's try to build the entire project directory structure, the project file structure, etc. Okay. For this project, we are going to be using UV. Okay. So let's get started. So first and foremost, what I'll do is I will create a directory. Okay. And let's say I'm going to call that directory as compliance QA pipeline. Okay, this is what I'm going to call the project as or the directory as. Okay, and you can see here the compliance QA pipeline has been created. Now in compliance QA pipeline, the first thing that I want to do is I want to install UV. Okay, now you can find it online how to install UV either using git bash or I'm using git bash, and hence I'm using the curl command, which is now if you're using PowerShell, you can go ahead with the other command, which is PowerShell hyphen execution policy bypass, all of that. Okay, you can just generate using Copilot or Gemini, you will get it. Okay, so because I'm using git bash, I'll use this, I'll hit enter, and this will help me install or create, not install, I would say, create pyproject.2ml file and the .python version file. Okay, so you can see it is getting downloaded. Yeah, and sorry, I'm so sorry. This will not help me create pyproject.2ml. That is something when we initialize the UV, but this will help us download UV. Okay, now let us initialize UV, and this will help us, create the pyproject.2ml file. You can see here. Yeah. All right. So you can see initialized project compliance QA pipeline. Okay. Now what we'll do is, I think first and foremost thing we should do is um, start building the. I think we should start building the. Yeah, let's start building the main directories that we want to. All right, so let's say the first directory I want to build is backend. Okay, so now let's say in backend again, let me go in backend now. All right, so we are now in backend, and in backend again I want to build four more directories. I want to build data, I want to build scripts, I want to build src, I want to build tests. All right, okay, so you can see these directories are here. Okay, so we have created those directories as well. Now in scripts, okay, I'll go here in scripts, and in scripts I'll create a file called as index.documents.py. By the way, you can also use a touch command. Okay, so I can also say touch. Let's say I want to create a file inside this script folder. Okay, so firstly I have to go inside the script folder, but let's say even if I want to, let's say, create inside backend or any directory, I can just say touch abc.py. And when I do that, can you see a file has been created? Yeah. So in order to create a file, let's say a Python file, a txt file, any file, you use a touch command. Right now we don't want it, so let's just delete this file. Okay. So I have taken index documents. After index documents in scripts, now let me just do one thing. Let me come out of here. If I do ls, I'll get an understanding of which all files and folders do I have. Okay, so what I'll do is I want to go in src. Okay, sorry, cd backend src. All right, I want to go in src, and src I want to create src as in source, and in source I want to create three more directories. Okay, so I'll create an API directory, I'll create a graph directory, and I'll create a services directory. Yeah, so these are the three directories that I want to create. Okay, all right. Now what I'll do is in here, okay, in API, I will create a directory, or I will create a file called as server.py, which is going to work with the backend, which is fast API. I'll also create a file called as telemetry.py, which is going to work with my Azure application insights. Okay. So in SRC, that is source module, in API directory, we have two files which are going to work with Azure application insights and the fast API backend. Now, the next thing is graph. Okay. And in this graph directory, I want to particularly create 3-4 files which are going to build a LangGraph for us. Okay, so first and foremost, I want to create the constructor file. Okay, once I have created the constructor file, I will create a file called as nodes.py, which will create the nodes in my LangGraph. Then I will create the state.py, wherein we'll be building the state of the graph. And because LangGraph is a stateful graph. And third is workflow.py. Okay, what is the job of workflow.py? What is the job of state nodes? We'll see when we get there. Okay. All right. So nodes is we have built API. We have built graph as well. Now let us go to services. Okay. And what I'll do is in services, I'll again create a constructor file. Okay. And I will also create a video indexer file. By the name itself, you might understand that it is going to help us index the video. But what exactly does it do? We'll get there. Okay. All right. So as of now, this looks decent. The file structure looks decent right now. In data, what we're going to do is, if you look at the data folder, okay, we are going to incorporate both the PDFs that we have. Okay, so you might find that in the project document also, and that is uploaded on this platform. So in this particular data folder, we're going to put both the PDFs that we have. All right. Now what you can do is, see, locally this folder will be created, right? This brand guard, you must have created this folder locally. So you can just go here and you can just upload the files, okay, in the data directory. Yeah. So what I'll do is I'll just do it right away. Okay. So just allow me a minute. Let me upload both those PDFs. All right, you can see I've uploaded both those PDFs. If I click here, you can see both the PDFs have been uploaded, right? And why are these PDFs important? Because using these PDFs, our video is going to get it's going to understand from these documents if the video advertisements are abiding, or are they not abiding or violating the rules that are mentioned in the FTC guidelines or the YouTube ad specifications. Okay. All right, guys. So we have successfully kind of created the pipeline for the project. All right. And with this, what we can also do here is along with the backend. Okay. Now we are in here. Okay. Now in the root directory, now this is the root directory, compliance QA pipeline. In the root directory, I'll also create a .env variable. Okay. And .env variable basically holds, it holds all your variables, right? Environment variables. And which are those environment variables? We'll see that in a while. Okay. As of now, what we can also do is, we let's do one thing. We'll just get all the UV libraries, okay, as in the libraries added. Which all libraries do we want? Let's get that downloaded. All right. So for starters, what we'll do is I'll do Azure identity. Okay. Now if you just look in the document. Okay, there are a couple of documents that are added, in this project. Okay, and in the document where we are talking about project walkthrough, etc., you will find this entire link of all the libraries that we're going to add. Okay, so let me do one thing. What I'm going to do is I'm directly going to copy paste all the libraries that we need. Okay, now these are the libraries we will be needing for this particular project. You can see there are a couple of them. Okay, identity, Azure Monitor, Open Telemetry, Azure Search Document, Azure Blob Storage, Fast API. Now, what are these libraries going to do? All of these libraries have a specific job. Okay, and slowly and steadily as we move in the project, we'll get a better understanding. For example, this library, Azure Monitor Telemetry, is used for Azure Application Insights. And what will Azure Application Insights do? It is going to track the project, right? It is going to track the logs. It is going to track the movement across the project, all of that. This library helps us do that. Then also we have Azure Search Documents. Now Azure Search Documents, if you can recall, we have something called Azure Search, Azure AI Search, which is it's basically going to act as your vector database, right? And then you have Blob Storage, which is going to store and manage your unstructured data, in this case, which is a video, right? So all these files have different use case. Now, if you look at YTDLP, this is going to help you download the YouTube video. So once you paste the YouTube URL, this will help you download the YouTube video, all of that, right? So let's hit enter. Okay, and as we hit enter, okay, you can see the videos, sorry, not the videos, the libraries are getting downloaded. All right, so let them get downloaded. And one more thing, as the libraries get downloaded, if you go to pyproject.2ml file, can you see the list of dependencies? So whenever your libraries are getting installed, okay, when your libraries are getting installed, whichever libraries you're getting are installing on your system in your environment, those libraries are appended to the dependencies list along with their version. Okay, so if you want to check, if you want to look which all libraries have you installed, all of it, you can just go to pyproject.2ml. Once your libraries have been installed, you can just do uv sync, okay, just to sync it up. Yeah, all right, so we have done uv sync as well. Okay, so as of now, I think the project directory looks fine. Okay, yeah, I think the project directory typically yeah, it looks fine. We have backend, and in backend we have data, we have scripts, we have src, we have tests. Now if you want to create a Docker file, you can do that. Okay, now let's say what I'll do is I'll create a Docker file. See, we are not using Docker for this project, but in case if you want to create a Docker file, okay, and maybe let's say if you want to containerize it, you can also create a Docker file here in the backend, in the backend this thing, in the backend folder. Okay, now I'll see, if the time permits. Okay, what I'll do is when I'll be uploading this code, I'll put some code in the Docker file. Not promising, we'll see. Actually, we don't need a Docker file for this, anyhow we have Azure. So I'm just showing you how can you create a Docker file, that's all. Okay, now if I go to .env, okay, and env is where we'll be storing all our environment variables. Okay, now in here, which all environment variables do we actually need? Okay, so firstly we need Azure storage environment keys. Okay, in Azure storage environment key, I'll be storing my key in something called as Azure storage connection, string. Okay, this is where I'll be storing my connection string and my credentials, all of that. Meanwhile, what we'll do is, firstly, let us just create the structure of .env variables that we want. And later, as we start creating the Azure services, okay, we'll put the keys and structure and strings, all of that here. Why do we need API keys or connection strings? So that we'll be able to connect our Python client, our project, our LangGraph project with the services that we are using. Okay. Then we'll be also needing the Azure OpenAI services, right? So let me keep this one also in caps. Yeah. Azure, this is Azure storage, and then there's Azure OpenAI config. Yeah. In here, what do we need? We need the Azure OpenAI API key, okay, which is obviously the API, the OpenAI API key, but we are going to access it from Azure, and typically from Foundry, we're going to put the API key here. Then I also need the OpenAI endpoint from where we'll be accessing the model, okay. OpenAI endpoint, yeah, correct. And then I'll be also needing the Azure OpenAI API version. So which version of the model are we using? And we also need to pass something called as chat deployment. Okay, chat deployment typically means which model are we using. Now in here, I'll write GPT-4o, okay, because we are going to use GPT-4o. So let me write it here right now itself. Okay, all right. Okay, so we'll be needing the connection string, which is typically blob storage. We'll be needing these API keys from Foundry, okay, Azure Foundry. And what we'll be doing is we'll also add the embedding model config. Okay, and this is typically for the clarity. So what I'll do is I'll create a variable called as Azure OpenAI embedding deployment. Okay, and I'll in fact I'll just pass which embedding model we're going to use. So we're going to use text embedding 3 small model. Okay, this is what we're going to use. Okay, so okay, all right. The next is the next that we're going to use is Azure AI search. Okay, and what is Azure AI search in this case? It is nothing but the knowledge base, right, that we're going to use. Okay, and so this is where things get vectorized, all of that, right? So here the first thing that we'll be needing is Azure search endpoint. Okay, after that we'll be needing Azure search API key. Okay, after this we'll be needing Azure search index name. All right, after this we'll be also using Azure video indexer service. And for Azure video indexer service, now this is where, you know, which helps your this is where, you know, your video gets indexed, understood, all of that. Now you can go to video 2 and you can revisit the functionalities of Azure video indexer. Here we'll be needing the Azure VI name, as in the indexer name that we're going to put. Then we'll be also needing the VI location. Now here what we're going to do is, because we use the standard account, we'll by default keep the location as East US. Okay, then I'll be using one more thing. Sometimes, you know, people face an issue with East US. Not usually, but let's say even if you face an issue here with US, then you can change the location to something called as trial. Okay, sorry, not trail, trial as well. Okay, so I'll write here change location to trial if facing issue. Mostly you will not face, but even if you face, just change this to trial. Okay, and then I have Azure VI account ID. So we'll be referring to some account ID, right? So I'll be putting the account ID here. Then we also need the subscription ID. Okay, so we'll be also putting the subscription ID here. And then I'll be also using the resource group, right? So when you use Azure, you create a resource group, right? And that is where you put all your services. Yeah. After video indexer config, we'll be also needing Azure monitoring, right? Which is a part of observability. Yeah. And in Azure monitoring, we need something called as application insights connection string. Okay. So when we'll be connecting our Azure with Azure application insights, we'll be putting that connection string in here. Okay. And finally, we also need Langsmith tracing. Yeah. And Langsmith tracing is again a part of observability only. Okay. And in here, what we need is we are just going to say LangChain tracing v2, and we're going to set it to true itself. Okay. Because we want our project to be traced. After that, it is going to ask us for LangChain endpoint. Okay, now typically the endpoint stays this one itself, which is https api.smith.langchain.com. Okay, now this is the I hope this is right. API. Yeah, this is fine. LangChain endpoint, and then we'll be passing the LangChain API key here. Okay, and after LangChain API key, we'll be also passing the LangChain project name here. Okay, let's say as of now, the project name that I'm going to put here is, let's say, Brand Guardian Prod. This is the project name that I'm going to put, or rather, under this project name, I want my entire project to be traced on Langsmith. Okay, so guys, these are, if you see, these are quite a bigger and better Azure infrastructure we're going to use for our agentic RAG project. All right, so let's let's proceed to the next step, guys. I hope you have understood till here. So in this project, we successfully created the the project pipeline, the pipeline structure, and also looked at creating the .env variables. Yes, let's move.